All right, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to our Thursday afternoon soiree with the Edgar Cayce On series. My name is Steve Bobbitt. I am the Vice Chair and Secretary of the Arizona ARE, the Association for Research and Enlightenment, and I'm here today to present to you my interpretation of what Edgar Cayce spoke of on the topic of patience. Now, I know that we live in a very patient and disciplined society, and all of this is just second nature to all of us. But perhaps there is still something in here that we can glean that would be helpful. This is what we're doing on Edgar Cayce on patience. John Schroeder and I have put together several of these, and we are doing the entire Search for God. Cayce's put out 2 entire books, 24 chapters, 25 count meditation on Search for God, book 1 and 2. This is part of the book 1 presentation. And eventually we're going to have the entire thing videoed, which we're doing right now. And we'll have it on YouTube and our Arizona EdgarCayceAZ.org websites for viewing at your pleasure. This information coming out here is, as I stated, my interpretation thereof. The Cayce readings were very specific in what they said, that each will find that which is necessary for them out of the readings. Consequently, we all can listen to, hear, watch, read the same thing, but we very likely will have different interpretations thereof, because we're going to take away from it that which we need. So this is my interpretation on patience. Now, with Cayce's readings here, you'll note that there's a number down here. In this case, it's 1554-3. Gladys Davis Turner, who was key in recording the Cayce transcripts for us, identified different people who were having readings and different topics by a number, so as to protect individual privacies, because quite honestly there were some very interesting revelations that would come out during these Cayce readings when he was doing them for individuals. This one, 1554, is an individual who is getting a reading. -3 means it's the third reading that 1554 got. And in this reading, Cayce's source came and said that patience is the lesson that each soul must learn in its sojourn through materiality. Well, we are in material form right now, so maybe patience is something on the forefront that we need to pay attention to. And ideally, the sooner the better. Okay, unfortunately, like a lot of the Cayce stuff, we don't figure this stuff out until we're north of 60, and so now you tell me this, you know. So, Cayce's, one of his definitions has to do with time, space, and patience as the 3 dimensions in which we live. Time, space, and patience. We always think it's different measurements and stuff, but this is Cayce's interpretation of it. So what is time? Well, as we know, it's a measurement system that we use. And it's obviously based on the Earth's rotation around the sun. Consequently, we have day and night. And obviously, we have repeatable patterns that are going to come on a various periodic of time. And Cayce tells us that this is strictly in the material realm. We don't have it in the other spiritual realms. It's only in materiality. Consequently, it's very, very limiting in nature, because we choose to use time as a means to limit our activities in a lot of ways. How many of y'all feel at once upon a time that you were ruled by time? Right? And if we let it, and it is a choice, it can control our actions. Consequently, our behavior becomes regimented based on what time it is. Become creatures of habit. I saw this with my mother's family. My mother was very strict about what time dinner was going to be served. You know, Daddy got home at 6, had a beer, cocktail, cigarette, or something else, and at 6:30, dinner was on the table. Her brother, my uncle, is just as bad. He has certain things. On Tuesday, he goes to Walmart. On Friday, he goes to the movies. Wednesday, it's casino day. And every day has its own purpose and its own function. Totally regulated about what time it is. That's just how it is, because this is our routine. In a lot of ways, there's not really much we can do about it in certain situations because some of us need to eat. But what we do take it, and we take it another step forward, and perhaps this is where we don't necessarily need to, but using time as a basis, we will also start to say, I must do this. I got to. It's time for me to do this. And it then becomes more of a ruling factor for us as opposed to a choice. Now, when we start talking about the time and space part, think about this. We know that we're on this earth and the earth is doing its thing. We have sun, we have night, we have our day. And it takes about 24 hours us to go full loop. But what time would it be were you standing on the sun and looking outwards? Would anything ever change, or would it be the same? You see, and that's kind of how we can rectify the time and space thing. But if we were on the sun looking out, would anything ever change? No, it would always be the same. So this is kind of what we're seeing here. Again, this is us going to work, right? Now, what about space? Space is another measurement system that we use. Perhaps it defines the area between two fixed points, between A and B, between Phoenix and Tucson, between Earth and Mars. Okay? And space is a three-dimensional spectrum where events occur. We're having an event right now. Some of you had an event this morning. Some of you will also have events this afternoon. And it's part of the whole. But again, man tends to use space as a limiter. It's limiting our thought process. It's limiting our actions because we can't do this. We are self-imposing restraints upon our actions simply because of our perception of what space is. And think about boundaries, right? No trespassing. You're in this state, but not that state. Invisible lines pick up. And if you cross these lines oftentimes, then what happens? There's consequences that we need to deal with. As such, we have a test bed or platform where we can test our patience. And it's in the testing of our patience that we are actually embracing an opportunity presented to us to grow spiritually. We don't often think as, patience as being part of the spiritual nature, but again, we need to look at the master, the pattern, the Jesus, and how did he exercise things? He was confronted oftentimes by people who were aggravating in nature, needy, gimme, gimme, gimme. But he always treated them fairly, upright. He didn't get, pissy with them. He just always met them because he understood. That's the pattern for us. That's the pattern for us. Here's some examples of space. We have our personal space, workspace. We have outer space. We have a parking space. We have distance, area, volume. The space between the ears is the final frontier, as it may be. That's the important one, believe it or not, because Captain Kirk told us that space was the final frontier. Cayce alluded to space between the ears being the final frontier. That is where it all comes together. Okay? Now, I have one of these guys over there on the left-hand side. And I can guarantee you, here in about 3 shakes of a lamb's tail, Whitey going to be backing up. You got Black Bart there fixing to get loose. And he going to get him the business. Because dachshunds are kind of like very, very sensitive to their space. That's what my dog used to look like. Now she's old. So, what is Cayce's overview? Well, he tells us that patience is the mechanism by which we possess our souls. Wow, that's a pretty interesting concept. It is the seeing of God in others despite their humanistic faults. Ever met anybody who doesn't have any humanistic faults? I haven't. But we need to recognize that they too are heirs to the throne just as we. And it is through the practice of patience and through the interaction and the looking beyond the faults that we perceive and are recognizing or are aware of in others that we actually attain our spiritual growth. And patience is also, if we choose to think of it in such a terms, as a very, very good check and balance system. Because oftentimes we are more reactive than we are proactive. We might fly off the handle. And then we can think about it later. This is us meeting ourselves. Okay? And with respect to Cayce's adage that the mind is the builder, this is very, very relevant to the subject of patience. Because it's all up in here, because we need to understand when we are displaying patience or not displaying patience, as the case may be, that there is a lesson there for us to learn. There's a lesson. You've got to always think about what it is that we are doing, and most importantly, why we are doing it. We are stuck here in materiality. And in materiality, it is often extremely easy to get sucked into being of this world, meaning beholding material, carnal types of values, than it is to be of this world. You know, we're here, but we don't have to always embrace those things, the ways of the world. You know, the pursuit of PMS, power, money, and sex. Anybody ever watch TV? Anybody ever watch TV? What's every storyline have to do with? Power, money, and sex. Right? Am I wrong? No. But that's it. And you see, we're telling it, everybody being told, well, that's the norm. That's what you're supposed to do. And if you ain't doing it, there's something wrong with you. Well, I guess there's something wrong with me. But some things are obvious too. Anyhow, think about how we progressed over the years and the different thought patterns that we embraced as we aged. I can't wait for summer vacation. I can't wait to get into high school. I can't wait to be 16 and then 21. I can't wait to get out of school. I can't wait till I get a job. I can't wait until I retire. And then what happens? How did it get so late so soon? It's night before it's afternoon. December's here before it's July. My goodness, how the time has flown. How did it get to be so late so soon? Anybody relate to that? It seems, at least in my estimation, that the older you get, the faster time seems to go by. You know, it just seems like yesterday I was having a great time. And now what are you doing? Now you're working and doing all kinds of stuff. But you got what you wanted, didn't you? Didn't you build it in your minds? I couldn't wait to get out of school. Well, you got out of school. I can't wait to be 16. Why? So I can drive. Now you're driving. Yeah, how much is insurance? Oh, I didn't think about that back then. All right? I got to be 21. Why? So I can drink. Well, therein lies a lot of problems. Right? And then I can't wait to get out of school. Well, here comes student loans. Right? Can't wait to quit working. Now what are you going to do? I can't wait till I retire. Now what are you going to do with yourself? Not always a bed of roses, is it? Next thing you know, you turn around and where did it all go? How fast did it get there? It's amazing how things fly. So let's take if we could, a deeper view from what Cayce's perspective is on the patience equation here. Patience. Again, it is a measurement tool that defines the quality of our spiritual awakening. And we may not always get a grasp on it. We may have always been told that we need to be patient in our pursuits of this, that, and the other. We need to be patient, waiting for something, right? Think back what we just said. Oh, I can't wait for summer vacation, and I can't wait to be 16 and 21, right? We need to have it. We should live for the day. Oftentimes, we use our impatience as a means to start building ahead. And when we do that, we forget that we are really supposed to be living here in the present. And we kind of miss that. Sometimes we let opportunities that we have before us go unanswered and pass by simply because we are impatient. We're wanting something else. And a lot of it comes down to the egocentric self of saying, okay, well, I want this. And we start getting into that way, and if somebody rubs us the wrong way or we do something differently, then we don't know. Because oftentimes when we are impatient and we lash out at somebody, we lack the full facts. We have no idea what's going on. Anybody ever get hand signals going down the road? Right? Yeah? Right? Yeah. Why? Well, because somebody doesn't like the quality of your driving. There's something wrong with you. You're doing the speed limit, damn it. You're not supposed to do the speed limit. You're supposed to do 15 plus because you're going to get away with it. It kind of seems like that's the norm, doesn't it? Right? But again, we never know when we see people just driving, at very high rates of speed, just blowing down the road. And we may form an opinion about that, but do we really know why they're doing that? No, we don't. We assume that we may, but we really don't. But patience is very fundamental to our experience, a very fundamental dimension to our experience. And it comes back to Cayce's creation story, where if we're all built at the same time, where all the souls came into existence at once, then there is no difference between any of us, per se. We're just separate entities, but we all have the same source. And with this, then we all have been disobedient. Cayce tells us that the original sin was disobedience, which is how we've managed to get ourselves here. So we have to get our way out. And you know how we get ourselves out of here? Through our interactions one with another. And guess what? Not everybody is on the same spiritual page. People have their own independent ideals, which is going to create how they act and react, and it may rub you the wrong way. So the question be, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do about that? Nothing says that you have to go tit for tat. Maybe you just, ignore it. Maybe you ignore people attacking you for, the meekest of reasons. And just understand that everybody's different. And, for some reason they are doing this, and you don't always know why. But it is an opportunity for you to practice patience. Because how you choose to react to the inputs that you are receiving is going to be a measure of your spiritual awakening. Where are you at right now? Patience is very, very big. And when we talk about what a dimension is, well, think about card games. Card games, two-dimensional, right? What do you have? You got numbers and suits. Okay. That's what you're looking for. Human experience is three-dimensional. But we have, within our three dimensions, a lot of different three dimensions. Three things that occur in threes. We're always saying that it's, time and space, and in Cayce deals patience, but there's other things that come along that we can do. Water can be a solid, it can be a liquid, or it could be a vapor. We measure things in length, width, and height. We have the past, the present, and the future. The Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. The mental, the physical, and the spiritual. And the body and mind and the soul. All of these are threes. Things happen in threes here in the third dimension because this is how we're framed. It doesn't mean that there's not other dimensions, because there certainly is. And this doesn't mean that each one has to be, in sequence, because according to the Cayce readings, you're able to actually transcend various different dimensions once you get out of here at the same time. So when we're looking at all of these things, we recognize that things do come into threes for very important reasons, because this is how our world is shaped. And this is how we are framing things across the board. In 2879, Cayce spoke, the body, the mind, and the soul are as the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Just as infinity in its expression to the finite mind is expressed in time, space, and patience. These are exercised in the consciousness, and yet only the spiritually discerning may interpret. Spiritually, there becomes no time or space, for they, like the Father, are one. But in man's application, they become as one, as in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Man's perception. And this is how Cayce is refining it. It's using the terms that with respect to infinity, which goes both ways, not just one way from the future, comes in and expressed in the finite mind as time. We understand time. We understand space. But now, if we want to have a deeper understanding, then this is where patience comes in. Now, think about this. Would you state that God is patient with you? Yeah, definitely. God is certainly patient with us. Why? Because He's made us. He understands our faults. He is giving us the latitude to do the things that we need to do to discover, so that we can, in fact, come back. But when we start putting things into threes, which is what we're going to do here on the third dimension, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, Cayce tells us they're all one. They are all one. We are all created out of the one. In the beginning, there is the Alpha and the Omega. Right? I am the Alpha and the Omega. What's that, Revelation 1:8? We talk about that. And we all came from the one source. But now in our own perceptions, we are breaking it down because perhaps we need to break it down in order to progress. Because maybe it's been proven across history and through the skeins of time and space that we, without guidance, don't do so well. And we needed to have some guidance that will show us what we need to do so that we can then change our mindset and make the conscious decision to do it. And it's truly amazing that the more I study the Cayce work and how it applies to our everyday life, that all you've got to do is check this against what we know about the life of Jesus. And it's amazing that was the master. That's the masterpiece. And it's simply follow the pattern. Follow the pattern. Now, Dr. Everett Irian was a prominent Cayceite who did a lot of studying on it, and he wrote a very great dissertation on the book of Revelation, in fact. But this is how he talks about time, space, and patience. And this is really interesting. Time, he said, is the measure of our understanding of an idea. Okay, so we have an idea. Space is the measure of our understanding of a manifested idea, which would be the application of the idea. We have an idea, okay, so now what are we going to do with it? And then in the patience comes the measure of our understanding of the purpose behind a manifested idea, which is the level of agreement with the idea. Now that's pretty deep, isn't it? But it's really pretty simple. How about we have an idea that we're going to build an environment where people can progress to get back from where they come. Let's call that Earth. Okay, that sounds like a good idea, right? Now, how are we going to apply it? Well, what are we going to do with it? Well, we're going to practice it. We're going to have nature. We're going to have people. We're going to have the animal kingdom, vegetable kingdom, the mineral kingdom, all working in concert to support those people who are applying the idea. Because the space that we're working in actually reflects what we're supposed to be doing. And then the patience is our level of agreement with it by understanding. I said, okay, we are all here on this earth together for a single purpose. We are here to try to find our way back. And it is through the interactions one with another that we are here to help and be helped, to go in and to progress with it. And along the way learn that it's not ourselves that we need to glorify, but rather the Father. And if we look about the idea of the flowers and the sunsets, the animals, all of this in their own way are glorifying God. Have you ever seen a beautiful sunset and say, wow, that's beautiful? Right? Did you have anything to do with that sunset, or did it just kind of happen? But it had an impact on you, didn't it? It made you give you a wow moment. That sunset is nature in play, is it not? That sunset just glorified God by giving you that experience. You ever had a beautiful flower, see a field of wildflowers and say, oh, that's beautiful? They're glorifying God right there. Why? Because they made you happy. You ever see an animal in a playful way and do they things that they do and recognize the love that they show on a regular basis? And you marvel at that? That animal's glorifying God. So why in the hell can't we do that, one with another? Sometimes I think we go out of our way not to. Because the reason is, truly, we don't have the mindset to do that. We're not really thinking about it in those terms because of the egocentric ideals which we possess. And once we get past that and recognize that it's not about me, rather it's about ye, everybody else, and we start to subjugate our own personal egos, which is exactly what Jesus did, then what are we starting to do? We are practicing patience. We are starting to grasp and get a hold of our souls. Because as God is patient with us, why can't we be patient one with another? We recognize that, okay, they're trying, they have their faults, but it's the mind's reasoning powers where we really get in trouble because we start to make outward appearing judgments as opposed to thinking back, stepping back and saying, okay, bigger picture, this person's down here for the same reason I am. Now he's taking a different path right here and I don't necessarily agree with it, but that's okay. But he's trying to go with it. Lord, help him. Let him find a way as you see he has need for. Because how many times have you seen and known people who in your judgment were just going on the road to perdition? I mean, it ain't going to end well. It's a train wreck in progress, man, right? And then you run across them years later, and they're an entirely different person, aren't they? Maybe on a younger, you just kind of wrote them off. Because there ain't no way that they're even going to see 30. Just the way the lifestyle they were. But then you check them, you come back later on, and you find that they've made an entirely different U-turn. Now they're down a different path doing different things. You didn't give them a prayer in hell. And at that time, God was experiencing patience with them. He was giving them patience to find themselves. Because everybody has their own opportunities. And maybe it isn't you who is the opportunity. You give them the freedom to go find themselves. And understand and trust. Trust, have faith that God will, He's not going to forgive them. They're not going to be that way always. There's a good possibility they'll change. Because every moment we live is a choice. And a lot of it comes right back down into being in patience. 34:12. The injunction then would be, know that all that materializes must first happen in spirit. The law of cause and effect ever remains. Hence, in spirit, it is purpose and ideal. The mind is the builder. Ideas, thoughts are things. You realize that everything that you look around here right now and see had its origins in the same place? Everything, once upon a time, was a thought, was it not? Somebody had a thought to build that table, to build that chair, to build this screen, to build this sexy body. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah. Everything begins with a thought in spirit. But then, the law of cause and effect remains forever. The law of cause and effect. You shall reap what you sow, as it's said in the Bible. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, according to Newton's third law of motion. So there it is. And it is far-reaching. And it is this reason that we understand that this is where patience is actually tied into. It is not our job to be judge, jury, and executioner. Just pass it on when things happen to us or around us or that we are imparted or impacted by. There's nothing that we can control but our thoughts, words, and deeds. Everything else is outside of our control. And trust me, everything is happening for a reason, and there is a safety net. That's your safety net right there. Our cause and effect world. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You shall reap what you sow. And that's universal law, is what Cayce's telling us. And this is what's going to happen. People are going to do things, and eventually they might learn something. My old man was great about that. I go out and do something really brilliant. He go, well, did you learn anything, boy? You know? Yeah, okay. But again, he gave me the latitude to do it. That's what God is doing to us right here. We have the latitude to go out, explore, and make our own mistakes and learn from it. Some of us now need to, hit our fingers with the hammer several times. That's why we got 10 fingers, Eventually some of us will get there and learn. But that's kind of how it is. And it's just it's a shadow of the spiritual. Thus in spirit, everything is in purpose. It begins in the spirit. And the ideal. The ideal is basically the intent. And that's why Cayce made, chapter 4, What is My Ideal? Book 1. Because that is my pattern for living. That is my guide to spiritual salvation. But it comes down to framing my thoughts, my words, my deeds into physical, into spiritual, into mental. And it's a constant thing. It's a constant thing that we've got to continually do. Because that's how we learn it. Then we start to get along with it. That's when we start to make progress. But this right here, understanding the law of cause and effect, right there, that should let you know that don't try to control things that you can't control. Things will take care of themselves. Things will take care of themselves. We can suggest and recommend that people take certain actions, but quite honestly, after that, it's a choice up to them, is it not? Nothing we can do about it. So why worry about it? Pray. That's the best answer. 2771 was a 32-year-old Jewish woman for whom Cayce gave this reading. Each soul, as it manifests in the earth, is body, mind, and spirit. These, as Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, are one. There's our connection. Okay, there's the connection. These terms of expression are used in this three-dimensional world. For the earth consciousness rarely conceives of that which may not be of a three-dimensional nature. The fourth and fifth dimensions may be spoken of, but as to their proofs, to most, and even to this entity at times, these are hazy. So there are other dimensions out there. And this lady was spiritually in tune, and in this thing, even to this entity, that could actually be Cayce as he was coming through. We understand that what we have here, but this ain't the end all. There's other things out there. I think there's, I don't know, I'm not sure what the exact reading is, Bob, maybe you know, but Cayce, I think, said 8 dimensions. Yeah, there's 8 different dimensions. And it doesn't mean that we have to go from 1 to 2 to 3, per se, in progression, but maybe we're able to flow through those various times. Maybe it's not like high school where you have to graduate from one before you get to the other. Perhaps on the other side, when we are back in spirit form, that we have the ability to not only take care of things of here, but maybe we also can go beyond a little bit. Because as the more we learn, then the more we're going to be shown. We know that we are body, mind, and spirit. This is our human composition, our makeup. We're one, tied together. As Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost are one. Same. We have our origins Right there. But we have to have things in terms of 3D, basically, for us to recognize and own it upstairs. Otherwise, it may not make sense to us. All right? And that's kind of how we are. And if we talk about patience in conjunction with understanding, this is basically like our tongue and groove of our development. Understanding is gained through both patience and impatience. Pain can be instructive and corrective. We must learn to temper our approach to life's lessons. And for me personally, it was getting my mind wrapped around that there's only 3 things that I can control. And yeah, there's a lot of crap goes on in this world that I don't like, don't approve of personally. But there sure ain't much I can do about it. But I can make a conscious decision to pray about it. I can control that which I can control, and that's it. And when things are outside the realm of what I am looking for and trying to do, then sometimes you just have to defer it to a higher authority, And that's the way it is. And that's, again, part of the purpose. So if you don't like what's an outline of life somewhere, it doesn't do any good to get mad about it. Or get furious and rail, and rant and rave. You're just upsetting yourself, creating poisons for your system. Everything happens for a reason. That was a big part of understanding. And another part, in conjunction with that, it's just not always about you. You may be part of a scene or something, but there's a lesson there perhaps for you, but the main drama is playing out elsewhere. Maybe you can learn from that. See what's going on. Maybe you have an opportunity to help. Maybe you have an opportunity to practice your own patience or to help somebody else practice patience. We never know. We never know. And this is why having an ideal is so important. Because an ideal is something to live by. We never know what life's going to throw at us. We don't know from minute to minute what we're going to walk into. We really don't. But by having laid down before us in truth and believe how we're going to judge and act ourselves mentally, spiritually, and physically, then we are prepared to deal with what comes our way. And if we do our things for the right reasons, which doesn't start with me, then things become a lot easier. Thus we are learning life's lessons. 262:24 comes out of the Patience readings in Search for God book. 262 is Search for God series. There's 130 readings. Through patience does the understanding come. Knowledge of itself is nothing. Understanding in the Lord becomes that of love, in patience that maketh for the glorifying of that which is the gift of the Father in the material, the mental, the spiritual world. Have you ever had situations or people that just, for some reason, they just get your goat? I mean, they just walk in the room and, my God, here we go again, right? Anybody ever have that? Yeah, right? And how is that lesson? What is the understanding? What is the patience involved in that? And in the vein that nothing happens by accident. I've got a couple of dogs who are, one's old and blind, and I have another one who's had its back blown out twice. And he doesn't have feelings in a lot of stuff. Consequently, there is a lot of, let's just say, household accidents that require tending to. And I will tell you, it gets quite old. And it is an opportunity I have found for patience, because I love these dogs. My buds. And there was a time, once upon a time, where my little one, who's blind and mostly deaf, she just goes and does her thing, wherever she gets the mood. And I came home one day, and there's it was clean up on aisle 5 time. So I go out and grab materials, and I'm down there on my hands and knees scrubbing the floor, trying to, get it together. I'm sitting there talking to the dog as if that's going to do any good. But, I'm sitting there. I said, what in the hell's wrong with you? Why in the hell do you continue to do this? Right? And then, right then and there, the little small voice upstairs fires off. Boing! You have mail. And it says, now you know how God feels when you continue to do the same thing that you know better not to do. Opportunity to practice patience going forward. And that was a major lesson for me. I would consider that understanding. Because you know what? The dog is old. She's blind. She can't see anything. She's going to do what she does. Okay? So if you want to change someone else, you got to change yourself first. And it's aggravating as hell, and it's a constant source of practicing patience. But when things happen, I fall back most of the time, and a lot of times, sometimes I don't. I haven't mastered this yet, because it's still aggravating. And it's okay. It's an opportunity to practice patience. Because, I can't speak dog. I don't know what's going on. This is an interesting creature. And the other one, every time he gets going away, he don't know he's doing something. And next thing you know, he's the boss because he's going down trailing. He don't have a clue. Have no clue what he's doing. And he's just a happy little guy just going down there. But guess what? Clean up on aisle 5. And it's aggravating because it happens a lot, and he can't control it. And I'm not going to throw him outside all day. It's 120 degrees out here in the summer. If I wanted to have a weenie roast, I'd put them on the grill, for God's sakes. Because they are dachshunds, so, they do qualify from that way. But, it's these things that happen that forces us to see, at least me, to stop and think about it. That everything is happening for a reason, and maybe it's a testament to say, okay, here's the situation. How are you going to react? What are you going to do with it? And it's a test. It's a test because this is the laboratory of life. We're here to prove that we are learning the lessons. Because God does it for us, right? Every time we do something, we don't get smacked, right? No. We have universal law to take care of that. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. Right? You will reap what you sow. Okay? And we just got to be careful with it and understand that it's happening. One of the ladies in the group here, 307, how may I more perfectly live the life that I may through patience gain the understanding? In the application of that known day by day. In the application of that known day by day. The Spirit does not call on anyone to live that it does not already know and understand. In the doing does there come the knowledge, the understanding for the next step. And what that means is, think about our progression through school. What did we do? Well, we had experience. We learned certain things in the different grades. And then how do we deal with it? Well, we practice it. We apply that. We write papers. We do fractions. We do different things in class to demonstrate that we know and understand this. And then what happens? After we say, okay, we got this, then what happens? We're given something more, right? And it's the same way spiritually. It's the same way spiritually. The lessons that we have in life are interactions with our fellow man and how we deal with them and the temperament which we display, the thoughts that we put out regarding them are all testaments of our level of understanding. Then, once we have a good understanding of it, then the next step is going to come in. Oftentimes, there's a saying that the more spiritually awakened you become, the harder it gets. And I was thinking about that the other day, and I have determined that I do not agree with that. I do not agree with that. I don't agree that it gets harder. Because what I believe happens is this right here, where we are being shown more, and the realization is coming into the conscious mind that there's more ways that we need to continue to control ourselves. It's not that it's getting harder, there's just, we're taking it now to another level. We're still controlling our thoughts, words, and deeds, but now we're being shown, hey, there's different ways that we can do this. And maybe we weren't thinking of the full spectrum. And now what's happening, it's just like we got the doors cracked open. We got a little bit of light coming in here. And then we open the door a little bit more, and we have more light. And that's kind of what we're doing here. And this is how we learn. This is how we build ourselves. So the pathway to spirituality is not harder. You're just finding more opportunities to apply it. That means you've got to want to do it in further detail, because that's what you're being shown to do. This came from Dr. Mark Thurston, and this is kind of how we actually operate. We get information, we have knowledge, application, then we apply it. We have experience. Then we learn, and then we have new knowledge that we are starting to go with. And this is the building blocks. We get here, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, right? But sometimes in our human ways of thinking, we do the end around, as they say in football, where, okay, I know this, I'm going to go over here and try it over there. And that don't work so well because you're missing something over here. And you hit the wall. Because you weren't ready to apply it. It's like thinking, okay, I know fractions, I'm ready to go into my trig class. Right? May not work so well. But you see, this is how we do things. We try to take this, we get in a hurry, we are impatient, and we try to take that which we know right now and apply it in a bigger picture thing, and we don't have all the information we need. Consequently, when we get up there, it doesn't always end well. Because we're not ready, we're being impatient. And that's kind of how we operate. And it's the same whether we are in school, whether we're in the workplace, or whether we are just living life in and of ourselves. We have situational challenges which are going to be presented to us as opportunities for us to take that which we know and have knowledge of and experience of and apply it so that we can satisfactorily meet the new challenge before us. And we got to stay on the path because we can't be trying to shoot out ahead, because that may not end well. That doesn't always end well for us, and we're going to be in trouble. Okay? Adele Besteveros. Patience with others is love. Patience with self is hope. Patience with God is faith. Pretty good if you think about that. Okay. As we all know, there are several things in life that challenge us and provide ample opportunities for us to practice patience. Perhaps other people's driving. No. How about waiting rooms? Computers. I attempted to turn my computer on 3 weeks ago tomorrow, and I got the blue screen of death, compliments of Mr. Gates. Everything, the hard drive won't boot up, it's dead. Patience, dear boy, patience. How about the airing of a different opinion? We're seeing a lot of that today where that's not acceptable, because if you don't agree with me, then you are a pick a number. I mean, there's a lot of descriptors for that. Customer service and tech support. Anybody have any issues with those? Personal relationships. Yeah. I think along the lines of personal relationships, the best one that I heard came from Dr. Peter Shobe. Said that marriage is an exercise in patience, Steve. Not only with your spouse, but with yourself as well. That was my buddy Peter. He was good. He was good. I miss him. Now, actions and inactions. We have expectations as human beings. And when our personal expectations of God, others, and ourselves fail to materialize, our patience are tried. God, why won't you do this for me? Etc. All we can control is our own thoughts, words, and deeds. If we're expecting something out of God and it does not materialize, how about faith? Maybe you ain't ready with it yet. Maybe you not ready for it. You want something, but are you ready for it? Are you ready to deal with it? Have you ever been in a situation where you wanted something really bad and then you didn't get it, time passes, and then something happened, you say, wow, I'm glad I didn't do that. Right? You've ever had that? Where you wanted something and it just never went, and then you were glad later that it didn't go? Yeah. We don't have to love the actions or inactions of another, but we must still love them. 993. Question. When we reach the development of ceasing to see the faults in those we contact, is it then we can say we have patience? Answer. When we see rather Him that we worship even in the faults of others, then we are at the beginning of patience. Hence, the onion gets pulled back. Expectations is, well, I'm not seeing faults in them. Well, good, and you're just now starting to learn patience. Because the key here is that we see Him in others. We don't have to like what other people say or do, but we still must love the spirit that's in there. Because they too have a seat at the table just as we. We were, 17 years ago, tested. Remember what happened 17 years ago? Airplanes went into buildings, right? Do you suppose that there was a lot of talking about the actors because of the act? Do you think the actors took a lot of heat from those who were still living? There was a lot of criticizing going on the actors about the act that was committed. Certainly it was a bad act. But How do you think about those who perpetrated that act? Do you love them? Despite what they do, we're told we're supposed to. And again, who do we defer to in times of uncertainty? Where's the pattern? Cayce tells us that Jesus laughed all the way to the cross. Why? Because he knew that it was mission accomplished. It spent many, many years. His purpose was coming to a culmination. And his biggest trial, according to Cayce, was in the garden that night. Because he knew what was coming. Not necessarily thrilled about what was coming. And he had a choice. He could have beat feet. But rather, he decided to go through and fulfill his purpose for our benefit. One that may control self in anger is beginning the first lessons or laws of experience. One that may control self in anger, that must come as resentment in the speech of individuals, may make for that which disregards the words said, disliking that which would produce such a feeling within self, yet able to love the soul of one that causes or produces such a state of feeling. You don't have to like the act, but you got to love the actor. And I guarantee you, in this day and age, we're tested every day with this in some way, shape, or form. Because I don't know about you, but there's a lot of stuff that I see going on in papers and news and whatnot that I don't necessarily like. But you know what? Those who are doing the things that I don't necessarily like and or agree with are too trying to find their way home as well, just as I. And the thing is, who is to say that one opinion or the other is more in line with the divine way? We don't know. We don't know. But this is what he's telling us. If somebody comes out there and gets in your grill, you know, you can disregard those words, but you cannot disregard the soul that is speaking them. The words is what's aggravating to us, and we are going to lash back out at that individual in case we don't need to. Love the soul. You don't have to like what they're doing, but you got to love the soul because their soul has their origins with you. They were created at the same time. They're just trying to find their way. Yes, Dr. Wallach. Yes, the person doing it, the actor, is the one who perpetrated the act, who flew the airplanes into the building. They too, that actor has a soul like we do. And we don't have to like what was done, but the soul is the same as ours. And it ain't easy in this world, is it, to do that? It's certainly not. Nobody says it's going to be easy. But we got to at least think about it, you know? And we got to bring it at least into our awareness so that when things do happen, maybe we think about that and say, okay, well, this individual is just trying to find his way back. The path that they may be taking at this point in time, not necessarily the greatest in my opinion, but wish him the best. Wish him the best. That's all we can do. That's all we can do. .295, Mildred Davis, identified as Cayce as the reincarnated Mary Magdalene. What is the Master's definition of patience? Know ye that in patience possess ye your souls. in interpreting then how one possesses their souls, that in the loss of patience there is the entering, as he gave, of those influences that would separate the real self, the soul, from the Maker. Hence, in patience possess ye your souls. Because we are being influenced when we react. There's influences coming in that's making us do that. But by deferring, strangling this individual till a later time, we are possessing patience. We're stepping back. We're stepping back because now we're making a recognition that this individual who's testing our patience is the same as us. Their physical body, their mental processes are differing, but their soul is trying to find the same way here. Their soul is trying to go. And maybe everybody's at different levels. Maybe they have different background information that's causing them to do this. And that's what he means by possessing your soul. Because think about what we do. Is God always amused with what we do? Probably not. But does he still love us? Unconditionally. Unconditionally. And when we're able to step back from throttling somebody because we're becoming impatient, then we're starting to get a grasp on our souls of who we really are. We're making a recognition that, hey, you know what? We all had our personal origins at the same time. We all are in these bodies right now to try to find certain aspects. We're all on a different chapter in the book in some way, shape, or form. But it's the same book. It's called the Book of Life. And a many-chaptered book it is. And we're all trying to find ourselves. So it's just, it's hard to do it, hard to get your mind wrapped around, but it requires practice. It requires not so much physical work as it does a change of mental perspective. That's all it is changing the way you're thinking about these things. And realizing that, okay, well, maybe you were wrong. Maybe you spent, many years thinking different ways and you were wrong. Quite honestly, if I have a researcher who does something, who's, saying that this, and this is true, and then after further investigation, they find out that everything they believed was not true, and they admit that, I have a lot of respect for that individual. And quite honestly, that's how each and every one of us are. We all have our own values, attitudes, and beliefs that we've had lifelong. And you know what? Maybe we weren't 100% correct. And as we go on, we have new information. We have the prerogative to change our mind. We're making a new determination based on new facts. It would be illogical not to do it. The only reason we wouldn't do it is because the ego is saying, oh no, we can't do that. We'd look like a buffoon. Well, the ego ain't your amigo, And we got to really understand that it's okay that upon, studying new facts, new revelations, that, hey, my opinion might change. Just the way the clock ticks. So, types of patience. Types of patience here. Two types, active and passive. Then we would define for the entity what we mean by the entity having patience in an active, positive manner and not merely as a passive thing. What could that mean? Having an active manner of patience versus just stepping aside. I would argue that children today those who we perceive to be unruly, who have been studied by people who study such matters, would tell us that they want discipline. They don't want carte blanche to do whatever they want. They want some sort of structured living. But I would also agree that in a lot of instances, parents take on the role of friend as opposed to parenting. And when they do that, that's not necessarily a good thing, because what you've got to recognize what is happening here is that the child is beginning to formulate, it's getting its own personal ball rolling for future love, future life. And if he goes down thinking he can get whatever he wants whenever, and he don't, then what's going to happen? He's going to rebel. Why? Because he always had what he wanted, and now he can't. And this is kind of what active patience is, it's loving. It's loving interaction. Not just saying, okay, he'll get better, it'll be fine, he'll outgrow it. But it's still trying to provide guidance in a loving way. Not just accepting that, okay, well, everybody's going to do whatever. Patience is not as a passive thing, but patience is necessary in the experience of each soul, rather as a positive, active thing within the application of same. Not a passive thing. We have got to actively practice patience in our environments. It doesn't mean that we have to say, just let things go. There's certain things that we can do for the betterment. And Cayce's telling us that we should do that. We should do that. Not necessarily in a passive manner, but we've got to be engaged. Got to be engaged. Taking or enduring hardships or censure or idiosyncrasies of others is not necessarily patience at all. It may become merely that of being a drudge, not only to self, but an outlet of expression from others that may never be quite satisfying, because there is no resistance. You don't have to put it in there. You don't have to put it out there. You don't have to put up with other people's nonsense. You can firmly state your viewpoint if you do not like what's going on. And that would be a form of active patience. And quite honestly, what this latter part is saying, maybe they do it because they've always gotten away with it. And maybe somebody needs to push back. Maybe it's the pushback that has to occur. But just because somebody is that way and you're not saying anything, Cayce said, that's not necessarily patience at all. That's quite honestly fear. Isn't that fear? Why won't you stand up for yourself? Because fear of this, fear of that, fear of whatever, and I guarantee you it all has to do with something in the material. They might fire me. She might divorce me. This might happen, that might happen. You're playing these woulda, coulda, shoulda games with yourselves. Well, we got to always make sure that it's okay. It's okay to get in other people's face and say, hey, no, you will not address me in those such terms. And you're still, when you do that, you're expressing patience in an active form. This does not mean becoming goody-good. No, far from it. Be able to look every man in the face and tell him to go to hell. But live as he did, the lowly Nazarene. You don't have to take guff from people. You deserve respect. And if people choose not to address you in such a way, for example, then you should let them know. And again, Cayce tells us that it's okay to get mad, get angry, but just don't sin. What would sinning be? Well, That would be trying to fulfill selfish desires to do something, or maybe pushing back and attacking another individual, not necessarily physically, but perhaps mentally or verbally. The act versus the actor thing again. But right there, it's okay, tell people, go fly a kite. Right there. Just don't sin doing it. You don't have to agree with them, but they don't have to treat you that way either. That would be active patience. Passive patience, to be sure, has its place. But consider patience rather from the precepts of God's relationship to man. Love unbounded is patience. Love manifested is patience. Endurance at times is patience. Consistence ever is patience. Unconditional love is what the Father gives us. Unconditional love. We should be able to exchange that one with another down here. Enduring at times is patience, but being consistent ever is patience. Being consistent with how you're going to approach things and how to approach others. Do things for the right reason. When you do that for the benefit of another with the intent to help somebody else, then you are demonstrating love for them. That too is patience. And we have plenty of opportunities to practice that. This is interesting. What has really happened to an individual when they think their patience is completely worn out? Anybody been there? They have lost patience with themselves. Where does that put the ball? In whose court? That person yanking your chain? Or that one getting yanked? You see? They're wearing me out. No, you've just lost patience with yourself. You quit trying. You quit trying to be patient. And see, that's what we do. That's how we do things. But we got to recognize where the fault lies. It's not this individual over there jerking your chain. It's you. It's you. You say you've totally, worn my patience out. You've lost patience with yourself. You're surrendering your ability to quit trying. Nobody said it would be easy, but again, you've got to, bigger perspective of what you're seeing here, what's going on. It's all about us with this respect in that we can control our outbursts if we choose. We can control what we are thinking and seeing and doing. When we get to the point where we have no more patience, that's on us. It isn't the other person is adept at doing that. It's that we are inept at managing it. Patience as a virtue. We've heard that before somewhere. We come to know God through living a virtuous life and gaining a deeper understanding of His lawful, loving ways. Living a virtuous life. Does that mean go out and be a priest? No, it doesn't. It means go out and be loving one to another. Again, the master. Lawful, loving ways. Yeah, I will love one another. I will love God with my entire mind, body, and soul. My neighbor as myself. The grand command, Matthew 22:36 to 40. That's it right there, man. That's it. We get to know God when we do this. We get to know the God that other people are struggling, that we have the ability to help them. We know that we too are going to struggle and people are going to show up and help us. It's a two-way street down here. But we got to want to. And we also got to appreciate that when we are having troubles and times of having issues, then you know what? That's an opportunity for us. It's also an opportunity for somebody to help us. And we see somebody struggling or whatever, we have the opportunity to help them if we so choose. And when people get in, we have our interactions with them, we don't necessarily agree. We have an opportunity to patience because guess what? Each is trying to find their own way. Who's to say who's right? And every man is entitled to their own personal opinion. You just don't have to go to blows over it. When does patience cease to be a virtue? When thou art satisfied with thy own surroundings or conditions. This is big. This is big. Because the operative word there is satisfied. I'm satisfied. If you're satisfied with something, let me ask you this. If you're satisfied with a meal, does that mean you're going to eat more? No, you're done. If you're satisfied with the way things are you going to try any harder? No. Anytime that you're satisfied, then maybe you're at the tipping point where you need to try a little bit harder. And ask yourself, am I really satisfied or is there room for improvement? Maybe there are some rooms for improvement here. Content, but not satisfied. Content in that, have thy way, Lord. Use me as a channel. Not my will, but thine be done. That is content. Satisfied means gratified. And is the beginning of the falling away for self is then to be glorified. Content but not satisfied. I am content with what I have, but please, Lord, use me as a channel for better ways so that I can better help other people. Because if your intent is not on helping others, then eventually it will come back to you. And when we're satisfied, then it's all about us. Then it becomes all about us. And we start to fall away because now we become, it's all the I, me, my starts coming back in. Not how you got there. Okay? And a lot of times we are given a lot of blessings and bounty from the God. And it's easy to get up to this thing and thinking that, well, guess what? It's all about me. I did all this. No, you didn't. You were given this. You may feel satisfied. Why? Because now it's all about me. And it can't be. It's got to be as us operating as a channel for the betterment of others. And if we truly believe that if we do for others, then we will get our rewards when we need them, then we're going down the right path. Because rewards may come in material form, but they'll certainly come in spiritual form. And everybody here's got a shelf life. But our souls don't. Eternity is a long time. You know what I mean there, Vern? Should one find themselves in that position where patience is not necessary in their experience, they are no longer then on the road to that kingdom and are no longer sons of light. He that is without those crosses has ceased to be of notice and is no longer among the sons. This is when we become full of ourselves. We think that we have attained such levels of material wealth, stature, power, etc., that we don't need to be patient because I'm important. And at this point here, when we get to that way, Cayce says we are no longer sons of the light. Because who's it about? Is it about God, others, or you? When it's about you, then it's not necessarily a good thing. And if you think that your life is such comfort that you don't have any crosses to bear, well, if you've put yourself in that condition, one way, shape, or form, again, no longer among the sons. Because it's our crosses by which we grow. When we struggle, we are opening the door for others to help us. We are also opening the door to call upon God for help and guidance. But if everything is such that we don't need anyone or anything for any reason, spiritually it's game over, baby. End of the road right there. So when we do have these burdens and our crosses that we are bearing, probably a good thing. Probably a good thing. May be painful in the material, but there's a reason for it, and trust me, in man's infinite wisdom, he knows very little. Cayce tells us in the glory section, book 2, man's not as smart as he thinks he is. Doesn't know the rules, doesn't know the regulations, doesn't know how the game's played. Because we live in a 3D world. Our souls are not 3D. Our souls are multidimensional, multifunctional. We're just here because we took a detour, went to the zoo and got stuck here. In knowledge and power comes responsibility, that in patience may be tested in self. Be not overcome by either trials or by those joys that may make forgetfulness of the source from which the power comes. There will be good days and there will be bad days, and both have their origins in the same place. Understand that when things are going really good, it's a blessing that's been bestowed upon you. It wasn't because of who you are individually. It's because God is giving it to you. The old man always said, don't let it go to your head. And that's kind of exactly what we got to remember. Because as we make progress, and the progress in our perception might be stellar, remember from where it comes. I had a boss once that, when I was running an operation down Texas, we were talking about the finances. He goes, well, your numbers are really good right now, but don't rest on your laurels because the numbers can change. And he said, the numbers will change too. So if you're thinking that you're king of the hill right now, that too can change. So along the lines, understand from where you're getting all of this, and use the power and the knowledge that you have fruitfully and humbly, because it's a gift from God to you, and it's intended to be used for the betterment of others and not just yourself. Our daily lives are filled with opportunities to practice patience. Sometimes the lessons are quite obvious, and other times they appear in subtle and unexpected ways. But if we were to take each and every instance that we have and treat it as an opportunity for spiritual growth, as an opportunity to help another, as an opportunity for us to practice patience within ourselves, to take an opportunity to think differently about what we are seeing and or doing, then we're starting to get down the right path. because it's all about remembering we have been trained as human beings. We've been here for 60 plus years. The road's been ingrained into us, and it may not necessarily be the best road. So we've got to take the opportunities that we have minute by minute and use them so that we can get on the spiritual path. And things are the way they are, and we're here for a very specific reason right now. But I would argue with 7 billion people down here, opportunities are indeed plentiful, if we so choose to look at them through the lens of opportunity and not a problem. Because the mind is the builder. You can be just as happy or as miserable as you choose to be. And the other people ain't going away, by the way. They're still going to be here. Okay? This presentation will be put it on our video site, our website eventually. EdgarCayceAZ.org is the website that this will be eventually uploaded to, and it will also be in the Arizona ARE site on YouTube, where we post all of our videos. So please go to either site, become a member, watch it, watch our videos, okay? If you ever want to hear them again, they'll be here. All righty? All right, thank y'all very much. Appreciate it.